Welcome, friends of the Greasy Shop Rag. Today we're going to take a look at a Husqvarna T540 top handle chainsaw. The customer complaint is that it won't start. So the first thing I want to do is look in the fuel tank and see what he's got going on in there. If he's got good clean fuel in there, we can move on. But if he's got like scummy pond water stuff or water in the fuel or something, then that's probably his issue. So I want to dump this fuel out and take a closer look at it. A lot of people ask about this funnel. It's a no-spill radiator filling funnel. You can just Google spill-free funnel and you'll find one. So I dumped his fuel out. The fuel looks good. It smelled decent. Made a little mess here I got to clean up. Looking in the tank, you can sometimes tell if there's water residue left in there after you've dumped it. It looked good. So I want to fish the fuel line out. And I noticed that he doesn't have the blue fuel filter that Husqvarna recommends for Autotune chainsaws. The blue filter is a little finer micron filter. We're going to pressure test the fuel line, pump it up to 10 pounds of pressure, and it's holding. If it didn't hold, then we would suspect a leak in the fuel hose or the carburetor not being sealed. But it passed, so we're putting the correct blue fuel filter on here. And then we'll put his fuel back in it. It looked good. No sediment in it. No water. All right. That part of our diagnosis is over. We're just priming up the fuel system again. Let's pop the hood and see what we got going on over here. Got a nice clean air filter. This guy does his maintenance. Or at least he cleaned it before he brought it in, and I appreciate that. We're going to look at the spark plug. And we're going to look in the cylinder. These things are kind of tucked away in here. Having this little spark plug removal tool really helps. You could do the same thing with any piece of rubber hose. I want to check for spark. He said it wouldn't start. So we're going to clip our tester onto a ground and then plug it into the spark plug boot. We'll pull the cord and see if we have spark. Now I thought I saw a spark, but then I kept pulling and I didn't see anything. Closing up the gap a little bit. Yeah, it just doesn't seem right. So I want to take a closer look at the ignition coil. Get our air conductor out of the way. And I want to test the ground between the ignition coil and the cylinder of the engine. You need a complete electrical circuit in order for that plug to fire. So if you got a bad ground between the coil and what its coil's bolted to, the engine block, then you could have problems. And there was a pretty good amount of resistance there, so I broke a screw loose and recranked it down, and now you'll see when I test it that our value has gone way down. So there was a little bit of a ground problem there. You can see we're at 0.3. So I'm going to take the coil off And I'm going to clean up the mounting pad on the engine block and a little bit on the lamination of the coil. I have seen a problem before where you just wouldn't get spark because of a bad ground. It makes perfect sense. So we have a little belt sander here. I mean, this is kind of taking it to the extreme, but that's the way I roll. All I'm trying to do is remove the paint from the mounting pad of the coil. You can do this with emery paper, a razor blade, a file, whatever you can get in there best with. It's kind of recessed, and this little belt sander, it just fits in there really nice. Now I'm not getting carried away and I'm not removing material. I'm just getting the paint off of there. Got it nice and shiny, so we know we'll get a good ground there. I'm taking some emery paper and cleaning the laminations on the coil in case there's any oil or clear coat or anything that might be on there. And we're making a little bit better ground. And hopefully next time we test for spark, we'll get better results. So we're setting our air gap between the coil and the flywheel at 0.3 millimeters. And now we're going to retest our ground. Point 1, 2, 3 looks good. We were at, I think, 0.9 or 11 or something before. So let's put this back together and get that recoil on there so we can yank on it a few times and see what there is to see. Alright, we're going to clip our tester on a good ground, plug it into the spark plug boot. And our results are not favorable at all. So I know I'm kind of barking up the wrong tree here. And I'm going to put this plug back in and move on to something else. I think right now that either the coil is shot or there's something else going on altogether. And this is an Autotune chainsaw. You know, the Autotune module does control the coil somewhat. And, you know, I just don't know what I'm looking for yet. Let's try and start this thing. It's not looking good. It's acting weird. Now I have seen this problem before on non-Autotune chainsaws. The ignition coil can act this way where it just sparks for a minute. So I'm going to try and see if there's any error code stored in here. And that black box that I'm pointing to with the green light means on the left, it means it's connected to the computer. There's a green light that should be illuminated on the right hand side. That means it's connected to the saw. And I'm not getting it to connect. It's connected to the computer, but not the saw. And I'm thinking, well, maybe we got a bad wire or something going on here. I'm going to disconnect the this white connector here and take a look at the physical prongs and see if they're green or corroded or bent or something silly like that. Everything's looking good. Looking into the other end of the connector, looks really good. But all of a sudden, my green light came on my Husqvarna Service Hub connection box. Why is that? Did I disturb a wire? Now all of a sudden it's connected? I haven't discovered it yet, by the way. I'm still tinkering around. At some point here, I'm going to glance down and notice that it's on. I don't quite have it connected yet. Here, now I do. Wait, look at that. I noticed that it's on. But I just made this connection with the white connector. And it went back off. So I'm a little confused right now. The gears are turning, hey. And actually the answer is quite obvious. But until you've experienced it once, it just doesn't jump out at you. So I pulled the connector apart again. And I'm not very patient. Messing around with the connector. I'm about to push it back together again. The green light comes on. Haven't noticed it yet. Now I noticed. So I have it apart and the green light is on. And I'm going to push it together. Waiting. The green light goes off. So I'm not sure what's going on here yet. The only thing I haven't looked at in this circuit is the kill switch and the wiring harness that runs from the coil up through the handle. There are 3 connectors that come from the coil, and they connect behind this handle on the first version T540s. So I want to look at all that stuff. Carefully taking this apart just so I don't lose the throttle and the springs. And look at that, the stop switch falls apart. Well, that could be our problem. I notice that the light is off. And here I'm just checking the integrity of the 3 connections that are below the stop switch. They come from the coil and pass up through this way to the stop switch and then to the Autotune module at the carburetor. So I'm taking one of the wires off the stop switch to pull it out of the circuit, and our green light comes back on. So in my mind, it's pretty obvious that a broken stop switch was shorting the circuit to ground for the ignition module and telling it to stop. What's a little odd is that, and I hadn't experienced this before, is when I tried to start it, it would, pop and run for that 1 second and then stop. That isn't something that I had experienced before, but I can assure you that that is stored in the data banks now. I mean, some of you ask, if I ever get stumped doing these repairs. Well, I usually eventually get them fixed. We get them figured out. And sometimes you get led down the wrong path. And it takes a little bit before you find the actual cause of the problem. And that's what happened here. A simple stop switch would have been the all that was needed. But that ground on the coil, that wasn't right. That didn't help matters. That may have developed into a worse problem in the future. So what we have going on now is, this is a 550 XP. I just wanted to try another Autotune saw and hold the stop switch on and then try and start it. So the saw runs. We see that. Now I'm going to lock that stop switch down and try and start it. Look at that, it didn't start. It acted exactly the same way as our repair. So I tried this with a 440 chainsaw, non-Autotune. And when I held the stop switch on and pulled on it, it didn't burp at all. So there is a difference in the way the Autotune modules respond to this exact problem than a regular saw. But a regular ignition coil sometimes does act this way because of internal problems on the coil, and replacing the module is the correct answer, not the stop switch. So testing the stop switch would be key. And you know, on the Autotune, you can't just pull a wire off the coil to eliminate the stop switch. You have to dig a little bit deeper to do that. So let's get back to our repair. We're going to put this together and see if the T540 is going to start. And if it does, then that's all I have for you on the Husqvarna T540 that wouldn't start due to a bad stop switch. Thanks for watching. Later.